Okay, so I think the slides are visible now.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm. So we'll see, like we'll have a quick recap of about why Hadoop is required or why MapReduce is required. See, whenever we are doing any program, a small program like a Java program or C++ or Python program or a normal data mining algorithm execution, what we always need is that our data should be there into the memory. Okay, so for machine learning algorithms or for doing some statistical problems, we need always the data to be there into the memory. So if your data is entered by the user through keyboard, it is already there in the memory. But if it is taken from the database such as Oracle or MS SQL Server, the data is brought back into the memory. And whenever you are firing a query, that time your data may be residing on the database server, but the data is brought back to the location where your program is running. Okay, so your program and data, they might be there in the same memory, and or maybe on the if it is distributed programming, it may be on some other machine, but your program is referring to that data and data is there into the memory. So whenever CPU is executing your algorithm is directly working on that data and it's giving you the result. So we want that data should be there into the memory for the proper execution of the program or fast execution of the program. But if your data size is big, in case of a data warehouse, then your entire data may not be, it's not possible to put the entire data into the memory. So in that case, what happens is that some portion of your data is brought into the memory and the results are stored or they are written back, or then the other portion of your data is brought into the memory and it is executed. So if you have big data, for big data, if you start doing this, it will take a lot of time. Like it may take a few months or a few days to read the entire data. And then it's becoming very slow. Plus, your even if you go on increasing CPU capacity or memory capacity, that is not going to help. So we cannot go for vertical scaling of your machine. We have to do the horizontal scaling. Horizontal scaling means you can go on adding multiple machines and solve the problem. Okay. So for the first time, like if we consider the example of Google search engine, suppose they want to crawl. The crawler is a component of Google. So if they are crawling 10 billion of web pages, and suppose the size of the web page is 20 kilobytes, then overall total data size will be 200 terabytes. Actually, it is more than that. Suppose this is a 20 terabytes of data to be indexed and processed. Okay, there are two major components of any search engine. First is a crawler who crawls the internet, gets the web pages, they are stored, and then search engine performs indexing operation or some processing on that data. So if that once the data is stored, if you want to read the data, if you consider any high end hard disk, currently it may be 100 MB per second speed, and with this speed, suppose you want to read this data, it will take around 46 days. And so it is not allowed, like so much of time is not allowed. But instead of having a single CPU, suppose you are having 1000 computers here. Then with this 1000 computers, this 4 million seconds divided by 1000, it may come around 1 hour. So the same kind of data can be processed or read by the machine in 1 hour if you are using 1000 machines to do this. Okay, so that's why Google came up with this new thing like data centers. Already they have so much of infrastructure, and they came up with the data center where the clusters are there, racks are there, and in that rack, machines are connected to each other with the help of a switch. So this in this example, there are two racks. The first rack contain maybe suppose 16 to 64 commodity Linux machines. So commodity machine means we just need a CPU, a memory, and disk, and no other input-output devices are needed. Uh, and it is a Linux operating system running on that. And the switch that connects the machines within the rack are 1 gigabits per second of capacity switches. They allow you the communication between two devices. Okay. Now one more difference between this uh, classical machine data mining and big data is that in this data is transferring here from your database server to the program. Okay, so data is traveling. So we are, if our data is so large, then we have to consider the mechanism that why to transfer the data from one place to another once the data is stored. So here they came up with the logic of transferring the program to the data. So your program is in the size of kilobytes or megabytes, kilobytes of information. So it is easy to to relocate your program to the location where the data is residing. Okay, so that way you can handle the data transfer and you don't have to worry about it. But in case suppose a particular data is to be transferred from one machine to another machine, the switch is there which gives the capacity or which has the speed of 1 gigabits per second. Or there can be a switch which connects two different racks with the higher capacity with 10 gigabits per second speed. Okay, so. It was a case that Google had 1 million machines uh, in 2011 only. That now, though it must be more than that. And so the challenges, what are the challenges here in this architecture? The challenges are your machine may fail in this data center. There's this huge data center, so many machines are there. And if we do the statistics, we say that a particular machine can work without fail if it is a new machine for 3 years continuously. And there may be hardware failure before that, but let's say it's performing properly, then it may, if it is on continuously, it may work well for 3 years of time. After 3 years of time, there is no guarantee. It may fail for some time. And if there are 1 million machines in the data center, then this failure is huge. Like for 1 million servers, the failure can be 1,000 failure per day. And handling such a failure is a big task because we want our data to be stored persistently. We don't want to lose the data, and we want that data should be available 24 by 7. It should be available continuously, and it should be stored permanently. We should not lose the data. So we need to have some mechanism for that. So all these problems are solved by Hadoop and MapReduce. So what Hadoop does is that it keeps the replica of the data. And the another problem can be the network bottleneck, like your switch may fail, and if a rack is inaccessible, then also your data should be available. Then and the third challenge is that your distributed programming is very hard. So we need to have some simple method of writing our programs where all these complexities should be hidden by the programmer. Okay, programmer need not to worry about these failures. He need not be worried about the shared data. Otherwise, he will have to write down all the racing conditions or mutual exclusion kind of programs each and everywhere. So all this complexity should be done by the programmer. So I think, can we summarize what are the problems? Can you write down on the chat what are the what are the challenges in the normal way of doing analytics? There are three challenges. Please write down on the chat. Or you can unmute Anurag. Anurag, you are there? Anurag? See, whenever I'm asking you or whenever I'm asking you any question, you have to reply. Anurag, you are there? Are you there? Shubham Pednekar? Shubham Pednekar? I think he's not there. Mayank? Srivastav?
Ma'am, one could be bringing huge amount of data into memory.
Yes,
Then hardware failure, as we are using many racks and all.
correct.
Yeah, these two I can think of right now.
Yeah. Okay. Correct, like data, we cannot transfer the data from one place to another if it is a big data because of the disk read bandwidth issues and the size of the memory. Okay, we cannot move data. Once the data is stored, we cannot move the data from one location to another location. It is not feasible because of the disk read bandwidth. Plus, your machine may fail or your network may fail. So even if the machine is failed, your data should be available, or even if the rack is inaccessible, data should be available for 24 by 7. Okay, these are the first two major challenges. Then your distributed programming is very hard. So programmer should be hidden with all these background complexities. He should be provided a framework in such a way that you don't have to worry about all the transfer, all kinds of complexities of sharing of data. Or the transparency should be there, and he should not. Its programming should be easy. So MapReduce address and Hadoop, they addresses all these challenges of cluster computing because they store the data redundantly on multiple machines. Then we move the computation close to the data. Instead of transferring data from one place to another, like to the program, we transfer the program to the location where the data is stored. And a simple programming model of MapReduce hides all the complexities. The distributed file system will provide the redundant data, redundancy and availability. Google is using a distributed file system called as Google File System, GFS. There are many distributed file systems are available, but Google uses GFS and Hadoop uses HDFS, that is Hadoop Distributed File System, for which helps in storing data in a redundant fashion and make sure that it is available always. Okay, so the and we if we observe the huge files can be stored. Plus, if we observe that the data is rarely updated, we just once we store the data, we are most of the time we are going to perform the read or append operation. That makes the life easy. So what happens is that your data is here in this diagram. Two replicas are stored. Okay, but by default, at least three replicas are stored in HDFS. So here your data may be divided into chunks such as the C0 is the first block, and the block size is by default normally it is 64 MB. So if you are submitting the big file to Hadoop system, the file is divided into 64 MB blocks, and the blocks are stored at multiple locations. So the replicas are maintained. And now this machine is called as a chunk server, or it is also called as a data node. Okay, the machine where the data is stored is called as a data node, or it can be called as a slave machine. It is a master and slave architecture. This particular machine where the data is stored, or the block of a particular data is stored, is called as a slave machine or data node, or it can also be called as a chunk server. But as we are saying that the computation is traveling and going to the data and then executing on this data, we can call it as a compute server also. So chunk servers also serve as a compute server. So this computation is also done on this machine because it is a proper machine with CPU, memory, and hard disk. Okay, so this way we'll see now. So the file is mainly it is split into 16 to 64 MB of size, and the chunks are replicated. By default, most of the places it is for three replicas are stored at least, and the replicas there is a proper scheme of storing the replicas that I'll explain you with the help of a diagram. And in this architecture, name node is a master node, and data node is a slave node where the data is stored, and name node keeps all the metadata information. So we start with today's lecture, that is Hadoop. So Hadoop, this is a definition for Hadoop. Hadoop is an open source. So the most important thing is that it is open source, so it is freely available. You can download and you can even customize as per your need. It is open source.
Ma'am,
It
the
is,
screen is not available.
yeah. This is not visible.
Not right now.
Okay, okay, sure. Now,
Yeah.
okay. So Hadoop is open source. Open source means it is available free of cost, and you can even download and customize as per your needs. So it is the main advantage of Hadoop is open source, and as it is open source, any startup or anyone who wants to do the analytics, it is available for that. So it becomes cheap. And second thing is that it is a Java-based programming framework. It uses it is developed by using Java language, so portability can be handled very well. So it is a Java-based programming framework. It supports storage and processing. So these are two main important things: storage and processing of extremely huge data uh, set in a distributed computing environment. In a distributed computing environment, it is a part of Apache product. So Apache has taken over it, and they are taking care of this particular technology. Okay. So any doubt in this? We'll just revise it again. Hadoop is open source. It is a Java based framework. It allows you to store the big data in a distributed fashion. It allows you to process this data in a distributed fashion, and it is a project by Apache. Okay. So let's see some history about this Hadoop. Uh, during 1990s, people were working on search engines. Okay. So what everyone were doing a search engine before Google. Yahoo search engine was also very famous. Like I have worked with Yahoo search engine for a few days. So the people everywhere people were using or they were working with the search engine. And what they wanted is that they wanted to return the results very fast. They wanted to improve the performance of their search engine, and they were working on that. At the same at the same time, these two scientists, Doug Cutting and Mike Caparella, they were working on a such kind of search engine, and the search engine was called as a nudge search engine. These two people during 1990s they were working on a search engine, and the name of the machine or name of the search engine was Nudge. So the crawler part, they were working on the crawler part of this search engine extensively. Later on, these two scientists they joined Yahoo, and then this search engine Nudge part became a part of Yahoo search engine. So uh, this Nudge is a name like the duck had a kid, and the meal that his kid used to have, the name of the meal was Nudge. So on that basis, he has given the name to his program of search engine, that is a crawler, as a Nudge. So what a particular search engine has is that it has a crawler as an important component. Here, Web Spider. Web Spider is another name to the crawler. So a search engine has a web crawler, which is an important component. This crawler, what it does is that it travels the internet. It goes through multiple web pages, and then it downloads all the pages. And these pages are to be stored in a distributed, or you need to have an infrastructure to store the pages, because it is a huge data set. Once the pages are stored, then some indexing is done and some processing is done. And whenever the user files the query, if all these things or indexing is done properly, they can return the results very fast. So at the same time, parallelly, Google was also working, and mm, Google was actually concentrating more on distributing data across different machines to process this task simultaneously. So they were working on this particular portion of the search engine. So the in the Yahoo, this Doug and Caparella, also developed the storage and distributing component of their search engine, and it was named as a Hadoop. So Hadoop is a name of a toy. Like this is a toy, elephant toy. Everywhere, whenever you are seeing a Hadoop, you are seeing this logo or elephant. So this was a toy that was means Doug's son used to play with this toy, and the name of the toy was Hadoop. So he named the storage and distributed processing part of the Yahoo search engine or Nudge search engine as Hadoop. Okay, so this is the short history about this. Like these two scientists mainly, they were working with Yahoo in 2006, and the crawler part they named as Nudge, which is a meal, name of a meal, and storage and distributed processing part is named as Hadoop, which is the name of the toy of Doug's son. And this is the logo that they started using on that. At the same time, parallelly, Google was also working with this distributed computing, and they also then they efficiently they came up with the search engine. So then in 2008, Yahoo released this Hadoop as open source project. It was taken over by Apache, and now Apache is handling. And there are lots of tools which are getting generated because it is open source. People are contributing, and many tools are created on the top of Hadoop MapReduce, and we can do this analytics. So again, we can say that here the definition is a framework that allows us mainly the storing and distributed processing of big data across the clusters of commodity hardware using a simple programming model. And the programming model is a MapReduce programming model. So in the exam they ask the question like if it is a 5 marks question as a first question, like what is big data and how it is linked with Hadoop. So that time you can write down such answer where you need to sometimes write down about the goals of Hadoop, like what are the goals which were there in the mind of developers. So what the scientists used to think that the system should be scalable, like your data is going to increase again and again, and then it should handle it. Like today it is working fine and tomorrow it is not working, then it's not allowed. So you have to design the architecture in such a way that it is a scalable architecture, and even if the data is increased, you just go on increasing the machine. So horizontal scaling is used here. Horizontal scaling means horizontally we go on adding the machines, and still the framework will work. It can handle many machines. So the system should be designed in such a way that it should be scalable. So it was this was the goal of Hadoop. When they developed this Hadoop framework, the first thing that they had to take care is about the scalability. Then the second thing is about the fault tolerance, because as we have seen that the machines may fail, and if it is a huge data center, 1,000 machines will fail in a day, and the data will be inaccessible. It should be available for 24/7. So fault tolerance scheme should be there. The system should automatically detect the failures, and it should handle the failure, and the end user should not be aware about it. So that was also in the mind when they designed this architecture. Plus, they were thinking that it should be economical. If it is expensive, then the small companies will not be able to use it. So it should be economical. So they made it economical by using the commodity hardware, a simple machine with a open source operating system such as Linux. And then the hardware should be handled so that in the background. Okay. So Hadoop does the following task. It allows you to store this massive data on the clusters of commodity hardware, and it allows the fast processing of this data. Now there are some assumptions, like whenever this is developed, there are some assumptions also. So the assumptions are it is a huge data. It is supposed to be like you are supposed to be working with Hadoop if it is a huge data. If it is a small data, you should not go for Hadoop because of lots of things to store, lots of operations to be performed, and it is not very easy to mount your file into HDFS and unmount the file. Once you mount the file, you cannot use a normal operating system commands like cat command or dir command, or there are some other commands that you have to use, and it's not very easy. So if it is a huge data, then only you should go for Hadoop. So these were the assumptions. The another assumption was hardware may fail, the system should be portable, The system should give the high throughput, but there is a low latency. Low latency means that suppose there is only a part of program or some module is to be executed, then it may take longer time compared to a normal execution, normal machine. But overall, if you consider the entire job of doing the analytics, the throughput is high, and the data is written once, but it can be read for multiple times. Okay, so we'll just summarize this slide. Hadoop basically performs two main tasks: storage of big data and processing of big data using commodity hardware. The goals of Hadoop are that the system should be scalable, it should be fault tolerant, it should handle the failures in the background, it should be economical. And there are some assumptions when we are working with Hadoop that the data should be very big, hardware may fail, the system is providing the portability, there is low latency, but there is high throughput. Throughput means overall execution of the entire project is fast, but some portion of your project or some small task may take more time, and we assume that our data is written once, we don't have to write the data again and again, or we don't have to rewrite the data, and we are going to perform multiple read operations. Okay, so now there are four main modules of or four main components of Hadoop. Like these four components are necessary whenever you are working with Hadoop. These four components are necessary. There are some add-on components which are called as a part of ecosystem, Hadoop ecosystem. So these are getting added by people because they are contributing. But the major four modules which you need is the first one is the Hadoop Common Libraries. So this Hadoop Common Library contain necessary Java files or scripts which are required to start the Hadoop system. So you just when the startup operation, whatever the initial files are needed, that comes under Hadoop Common, and some libraries which are always there or which are always needed by the other Hadoop models. They are the part of Common Hadoop Common. The second component is the yet another resource negotiator, Yarn. It is a resource management platform. So in case of this cluster, so many machines are there, and every machine has a CPU, every machine has a memory. So this Yarn is a important component, which is like a manager uh, of your data center or your cluster, and it is always looking at all the machines, like how much memory is used by a particular machine, which CPU is very busy, which CPU is idle, or how many tasks can be executed by a CPU at the same time. So it is overall it is keeping track of the cluster, and it is like operating system. Just I know operating system. We say that operating system is a resource manager of your machine, and it performs all the management operations. Like it performs memory management, CPU management, disk management, and it will always ensure that your CPU is busy. So like this, Yarn is a resource manager of your cluster. Yarn component is a resource manager of the cluster. It is keeping track of each and every machine in the cluster, and it knows that which CPU is busy, which CPU is doing which job, what is the memory, how much memory is free. Like this, it keeps track of all the resources of the cluster, and also it performs the job scheduling. Like whenever there is any job is to be performed, and what are the different types of jobs? Like it is a mapper job, or it is a reducer job submitted by the client, and the job should be executed at multiple locations. You just write one simple mapper function, and you just write a one simple reducer function, but your data is distributed, and if the data, there are three copies of your data or three parts of your data, then there are three mapper functions running parallelly on three different machines. So this job scheduling is done by Yarn. Okay, so it is a very important component. I think you must have understood about it. Mm, Now I'll ask to someone. Kevin, Kevin, are you there? See, please ensure that everyone should follow his dharma. Nowadays, I'm watching Mahabharat, Ramayana. I've seen all this when on in this lockdown. So one important message, all these stories they give you that you have to follow your dharma. Dharma means your job or your duty. You have to follow your duties in your life properly so that nothing will go wrong in your life. So if I am doing my duty to take the lecture, to get up early in the morning and set up my laptop with all this and just checking, ensuring internet is connected properly, my meeting ID shared properly with the students, and I'm there on time. It is your duty that you also have to be there, and you should also try to learn something. So just if you are doing just logging in and just going and vanishing, it is not allowed. Okay, so follow your dharma so that I don't mind, but follow your dharma of your duty of a student. Okay, now I can check with someone else. Benita, Benita, Jason, are you there? Please, if you don't know the answer, you can unmute and you tell that no, ma'am, I have not understood, and because it is a you are learning this for the first time or you are listening this for the first time. So it may happen that even if I'm telling you, you may not understand. So you just unmute and you say that no, no, ma'am, I have not understood, or I cannot summarize. Like this, you should answer me. Jason, are you there? Okay, Benita, can you answer? Like what is yarn? Okay, what is the job of yarn? Okay, fine. Yarn is a. You can answer me again afterwards, Benita. I'm just telling you now. Yarn is a yet another resource negotiator. Yarn is a yet another resource negotiator. It is one of the important component of Hadoop. Hadoop mein there are four main components which are always needed to work with Hadoop. Whenever you start Hadoop system, all these four components will be in the running condition inside the memory, somewhere in the cluster. Okay, so the first component is a common library, which is a Java library like your JRE or JVM to run the Java program. So to start the Hadoop, some common libraries are needed. Then there is some important component called as yet another resource negotiator, that is called as a yarn. So yarn is like a resource manager. Yarn is looking at your cluster. This is your cluster, suppose. Sorry, it is another slide. So Yarn is a resource manager of your cluster who is looking at your cluster where the cluster inside the cluster multiple machines are there, 1000 machines are there. So it is keeping track of all these machines that how much CPU is used by which particular machine or data node, then which program is running on which machine, how much memory is used, what is the CPU utilization, all this, and how to schedule the job. It decides, like it can identify that a particular CPU is idle, so it will ask that particular machine to perform some job. It will transfer the data and it will transfer the computation to that machine, and it will make things working inside the cluster. So it is a very important component. Like operating system is needed when we are working with our single computer. Similar to that, whenever we are working with cluster, yarn is required because it will allocate the job. It will decide, like it will work with the name node. Name node is going to do everything, but it helps name node to take the decision because it is keeping track of all the cluster resources. The third component is about HDFS, that is a Hadoop distributed file system, which allows you to store your data, divide your data into chunks, and store it into data node. And the fourth component is the MapReduce framework, which provides application programming interface library functions to the end user. So MapReduce provides APIs, and because of these APIs, the programmer can invoke them and he can write the program in Python, Java, or Spark language or PySpark language. Okay, so we'll summarize. There are four components which are required for Hadoop. There are four main core components of Hadoop. Hadoop common library functions. Then yet another resource negotiator, which is a resource manager of the cluster. It checks that which data nodes are busy or which CPU is idle or which how much memory is utilized, overall memory utilization of the entire cluster or individual machines utilization of resources. So it is a resource manager of the cluster. Then the distributed file system HDFS, and then the MapReduce is the programming. It is a YARN based system for parallel programming. Okay, so even if it is not clear right now, with the help of a diagram, it will be clear. I'm going to take one example of word counting application, and that time we will see like how things are happening inside the cluster. Then there are some other components. These are the basic core components. These are the new components which are added, which works on the top of HDFS and MapReduce, such as Hive is a data warehouse, Pig is a scripting language, HBase is a columnar database, Spark is very useful for string programming. Okay, so we'll see today about the first four major components. That is, the first one is about Hadoop common package. So what is there inside the, whenever you start the Hadoop, you need this package. So what it contains? It contains some jar files, some scripts which are needed to start up your Hadoop. Then it needs some JRE like JVM or higher version to start the Hadoop. Plus, if there is any communication between two machines, the communication is done with the help of SSH. So SSH secure shell is required to have communication between this. SSH should be there on each and every node. And some library, Java libraries and utilities which are used by HBase and Hive. Okay. So the common package contains jar files, JRE, SSH, and Java libraries. Because it is a Java-based framework, you need JRE as well as Java libraries. These are two things which is easy to remember. Okay. How to remember the information which is there in Hadoop Common is that you need, it is a Java-based framework, so you need JVM, you need some extra Java libraries, which will be used by HBase or Hive, etc. Plus, the communication between the nodes is happening via secure shell. So SSH is should be there, and some jar files and scripts are needed to start the Hadoop. The common package includes all this information. Then the Hadoop, the second component is HDFS. HDFS is a Hadoop distributed file system. It is a common interface. So we'll see with the help of a diagram here. This is your Hadoop architecture. In this Hadoop architecture, so you are the client. Suppose you want to perform the operation of word count exercise. You have a big text file. In that text file, some information is there, and you want to count the frequency of the word, like how many times a particular word has occurred in the file. So this word counting exercise, you write a program. You will write mapper, reducer, and main program, and your file. Okay. So now, whenever we are doing analytics, there are major always there are two steps: storage and then processing. So the first step is about the storage. So your file feedback file or log file of your server is submitted to the name node. What happens is that in case of HDFS architecture, we have all these components. The first component is a client. Client is going to submit the data to the system, and client communicates to the name node always. For the first time, the client communicates with the name node. Name node is a master and slave architecture. Name node is a master of your cluster. This is the diagram of a cluster. For simplicity, I am showing only two racks. There are multiple racks. For simplicity, here I am showing two different racks. The first rack has 3 data nodes. Second rack has 2 data nodes. So it is a master and slave architecture. Name node is a master, and these are the data nodes. So one rack has 3 data nodes, another rack has 3 data nodes. In this master slave architecture, name node is a master and data node is a slave. So master gives the order to the data node to perform any particular job. Okay, and the client has a big data. So the first step of your analytics is to store the big data. So client takes this big data file. Suppose it is an unstructured document. It takes the unstructured document, submits it to the name node. Now name node is also connected with the yarn. Yarn, I am telling you that yarn is a component. So it is in connection with the yarn, and yarn has kept track of all the machines or entire cluster. Yarn knows that this is a particular data node. Here there are 3 jobs are running, or there is no job here, or this much data. This in my diagram right now I'm concentrating only on HDFS. So I have not made this diagram complicated. Okay, so I'm taking HDFS today. Tomorrow I may tell you about some extra things about HDFS, and then in maybe in tomorrow's lecture, next lecture, or next to next lecture, I'm going to teach you about the entire workflow. Like once the job is submitted, what is going to happen inside the cluster. So please be you need to understand that, and once you understand that, it is very easy to understand the subject. Okay, so don't miss that lecture. Right now, we are concentrating on HDFS. So I'm not showing you the yarn here in the diagram. This is the HDFS architecture. In this HDFS architecture, the components are client, name node, data nodes, and the racks are shown. That's all. But otherwise, in the cluster, there is a name node, there is a secondary name node, there is a yarn running somewhere, and so what happens is that you take a big unstructured file, submit it to name node, and you say that I want to store the file onto the data center. So name node with in consultation with yarn, we come to know that the file should be divided into suppose 3 blocks, A, B, and C. So it will calculate, and it will give that information to client. It will give that information back to the client that your file is divided into 3 blocks. The blocks are A, B, and C. The A block is to be stored on machine number 1, machine number 2, this, and the machine number 5. Then B block is to be stored on machine number 1, machine number 3, machine number 4. C block should be stored on machine number suppose 3, 2, and 5. Like this, it gives this information to the client. Now the size of the block is typically 64 MB ka size. And in a normal data center, in a rack, we can store 16 to 64 data nodes can be there. Here I am showing only 3, but there can be 16, minimum 16 to maximum 64 machines in a rack can be there, which are connected by a switch, and there is another switch who will connect these 2 racks with each other. Okay. Now what happens is that this information is given to the client. So name node keeps some metadata information also. So name node has done this job. So name node has kept all this information. It has noted that there are 3 blocks, and this particular machine file feedback.txt file 3 blocks are created, and 3 blocks are residing on these 3 machines. All this information is stored in the form of metadata onto the name node. So this information is there with name node. Now, what client will do is that client will take the block A, and it will go to the primary machine. Like the machine number 1 is a primary machine, major machine. Like whenever A is to be referred, this machine is contacted for the first time. If it is not available, then the second machine is tried, and if it is not available here, then the third machine is tried. Like here, I'm saying that block A is stored on machine number 1, 2, and 5. So whenever block A is needed, always it is searched in this first machine. If it is not there, then in the second machine. If it is not there, then or not accessible, then it is on the 5th machine. Okay. So what client will do that it will know the IP. The name node will provide all the information about this machine IP address. So client will use the TCP connection, and it will establish the TCP connection with this machine, and it will say that block A is to be stored on this machine, and it will give the information about the machine number 2 and machine number 5 also. That the replica, by default 3 replicas are stored. So it will say that the first replica, your first replica will be on machine number 2, and the second replica will be on machine number 5. Okay. So why this is done? Because Otherwise, if client will go on contacting with all these machines, and then the network traffic will be there, and it will not be able to handle uh, this communication. So what happens is that client will tell to the first machine, then first machine will contact to the second machine will contact to the fifth machine. So this way we are distributing the traffic also. Okay. So I'll just start again. If there is any big file, that file is submitted to NameNode. NameNode decides that there are three blocks to be created, A, B, C, and A is to be stored on machine number 1, 2, and 5, and it gives this information to client. Now client will communicate with the this first machine, and it will say that this block is to be stored over here, and these are the two replicas. So this second machine will contact this first machine will contact to the second machine, and it will say that you create a replica of A, and another replica is to be stored on fifth. So now the machine 2 will have the TCP connection with 5, and it will say that you keep this copy with yourself. If the copy is successfully created, this machine number 5 will send the acknowledgement to machine number 2. Machine number 2 will send that okay, both the copies are properly created, and it will send the positive acknowledgement to 1, and then 1 will send the positive acknowledgement to client, and then the client will send the positive acknowledgement to name. Okay, this way it is going to store this data in a distributed fashion. Okay, so once this write operation is done, then mostly we need the read operation. Now why such kind of, like, whenever three replicas are created, the system takes into account that two replicas should be, like, this is the main copy of your data block, or the chunk of your data. So it will select the second replica in such a way that it is nearby this machine. Okay, within the same rack. The second replica is created on such a data node which is located nearby this machine. So if this machine is failed, it will be very easy to contact the second machine which is in the nearby location. Okay, and but if the network, there is a failure in the switch. So if this machine is failed, the replica is considered from the nearby machine. But if this particular switch is failed, then this rack will be inaccessible. In that case, the replica which is there in the another rack is considered. So if there are three replicas maintained, two replicas are in one rack, and the third one is in the another rack. This way, the replication is done. Okay, so I think we will stop now. Now, in this case, any doubts? So we'll see again in Monday's lecture with a proper example about how the file is stored, and then how it is to be executed. So I'll teach you with Hadoop and with MapReduce. Okay, be interactive. You are not answering or you're not writing anything in the chat. Please you write, and so that I know that I'm talking to the students. I'm not talking to the screen. Abhishek is saying that aren't we wasting space having three replicas? Yes, we need the replicas because of the handling of the failures. Because it is a data center and the cheap machines are there, and we have to be, our system should be available for 24 by 7. It should be available, plus our data should be available persistently. So if one particular machine is failed and if the disk is corrupted, then we may lose the data. So it's not allowed to lose the data. The data should be persistently stored. So that's why minimum three replicas are needed. Minimum three, maximum can be anything. Like in the real world scenario, they may be having many replicas. And if replication is there, consistency is required. Once if the data is changed at one place, it should be immediately changed at other places. But as we said that in case of majorly for big data analytics, we are writing it once and reading it more time. So the consistency issues are not major issues. Okay, whenever the term replication is there, you need to consider about the consistency also. So, but in case of big data, consistency will not be major issue. They will handle it, but if it is needed. But most of the time we don't need. Once we write the data, we are not going to rewrite it. Okay, so is it solved? So that's why replicas are needed. Anyone, any other doubt? Okay, so I just want to know that whether you have understood and whether you were listening. So please answer your questions and the questions of the quiz. Some of the so answer the quiz fast. Like there are only five, six questions. Can you see this screen?
No, ma'am, you have not shared your screen.
Can you see the quiz now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you write the answers in the chat, or you can unmute and you tell me the answer. Okay. Actually, I'm not able to see the chat. I'll just print it first. The first question is that the nudge is what is nudge? Just a minute. Okay, you start writing about the answers here. It is a crawler, correct. Then the second question is Hadoop core components are. You can write down ABCD. Answer says ABCD. What are the Hadoop core components that we have studied? It is common library, A, B, HDFS, then yarn and MapReduce. Correct. So A, B, D, and F. Then yarn. What is the long form of yarn? Write the answer in with the first letter as capital whenever you are solving it. Yarn ka full form you write down. What is yarn? Yet another resource negotiator. Correct. Evelyn answered first. Then yet another resource negotiator which keeps track of your cluster, and it is a resource manager of your cluster or data center. HDFS master node is named as name node. Correct. HDFS master node is a name node. It is a master slave architecture. Name node is a master. Data nodes are slaves. The default size of a block is default 64 MB. Correct. Default size of a single block is 64 MB. Correct. HDFS can store the data in encrypted format, or it can store the data in a compressed format, or it can authenticate or authorize the user. Okay, this we have not covered. HDFS, but I have told you in one of the lectures what is possible. Encryption is not possible. And compression also we don't do compress, we store the raw data as it is. But only the thing is that we can authorize the client. Whenever the client is interacting with the name node or master of the system, master can authenticate and authorize the client, and then only he is allowed to work with the system. Okay, so authentication and authorization is there. Then client communicates with the data node to store the data. Who communicates with the data node to store the data? Name node or client? Who communicates with the client node data to store data node to store the data? It is not false. It is true. Client communicates. Client communicates with the data node. In the diagram now I have shown you na, that the client communicates with the name node. Name node gives the information about the IP address of the data node where the block is to be stored. So client communicates with the data node to store the data. Okay, we'll see that again in the next lecture. Then metadata information about the cluster is maintained by name node. Yes. Okay. So so after seeing this answer, like it's okay, we will now continue on Monday. Thank you.